When the Switch came out, it was a time of pure optimism. Breath of the Wild had just amazed us all, and a new 3D Mario was on the way. We were looking forward to so many new Nintendo projects that we could play anywhere. On the TV, in bed, in prison. Which worked out pretty well for the Smash community actually. Each time a new year would come, and there'd be so many discussions every time about how this next year, that would be the big one for the Switch. My question is, did we ever really see those expectations fulfilled? Has the Switch been all that great? The console has finally surpassed the Wii, and it's been the fastest selling console for multiple years straight now. But do those metrics speak for the quality of the product, and the support provided for it? Well, you can find out in this video, but before you do that, look at this graph. It's not looking too good right now, I'll be honest with you. But you can change that. How? Well, it's very simple, you just hit that subscribe button, so go ahead and do that. Anyway, let's get started. Okay, so quality of the product. I think we all know what I'm about to say. Joy-Con drift. We know it, and we hate it. As you know, the Joy-Cons have a defect where over time, the stick starts to drift in a different direction, to the point where it makes the games just unplayable. This is just embarrassing. So many people have had to constantly go out and buy new pairs of Joy-Cons, running them hundreds and hundreds of pounds potentially. But what's worse is, Nintendo has refused to acknowledge it or even fix it. Obviously at the moment they won't admit to it, since Joy-Con drift is the subject of a class action lawsuit against them. But even before that, they just turned a blind eye to it. There used to be a time when Nintendo was known for making consoles that stood the test of time and would stay functional seemingly forever, but not with the Switch. Now, I get that the Switch is a very different and newer type of console that's yet to be fully perfected, and I can admit that the Joy-Cons are a feat of engineering with that much tech packed into this tiny little thing. But the problem is the attitude towards the drift situation from Nintendo. I'm far from the first to say this, but it seems like Nintendo is choosing not to fix their Joy-Cons because they have dollar signs in their eyes from the profits of people buying replacement Joy-Cons. You'd like to believe this isn't the case, but Nintendo is a business, and Joy-Con drift is far from hurting their sales. It definitely seems like Nintendo has its head in the clouds from the money the Switch has pulled in for them. So that's one of the big talking points of the Switch. And you can probably guess what the other one is. So, about Nintendo Switch Online. It sucks. Firstly, the netcode for the servers is absolutely terrible. I'm no tech whiz, but I do know the general explanation as to why this is the case. So basically, the Nintendo Switch Online netcode was designed for areas with lots of people all bunched together in one place, which works great in Japan with plenty of places with high population density. But when you apply it to other countries, it just doesn't go so well since people are more spread apart. Yeah, this is just another one of those situations where Nintendo is pretty oblivious to how things work outside of Japan. In general, Nintendo is pretty new to the whole online service shebang, and I really wish they asked for help from a more experienced company with their netcode. I mean, look at Sony. They saw that in terms of online service quality, Microsoft was completely outpacing them, so they formed an unexpected strategic partnership in 2019 where PlayStation would use Microsoft Azure data centers for cloud gaming and streaming services. Why can't Nintendo do that as well? They're already pretty buddy-buddy with Microsoft. Remember that crossplay advert they did together for Minecraft? Then there was Cuphead coming to Switch, and then Ori as well. Nintendo is clearly open to these mutually beneficial partnerships, so they need to apply them in areas that really count. But Nintendo can be pretty strange and prideful when it comes to making their own things. Honestly, sometimes I just wish I could shake some sense into Furukawa. There is more to the online service than just the servers though. So what are the other features like? The voice chat is terrible. It can't be done natively and has to be done through their stupid mobile app that no one uses. But this complaint has been done to death. So let's not dwell on it too much, but it does suck and it is a valid complaint. Instead, let's talk about something a bit more recent, like their premium online subscription for 35 quid a year. This offers access to a library of Nintendo 64 games, Sega Genesis games, and Happy Home Designer, on top of the regular NES and SNES libraries. Now, the NES and SNES collections are already lackluster, with very few interesting games ever being added besides some Marios, Zeldas, and Donkey Kongs here and there. The base subscription was a very cheap option, so the complaints weren't too big. The issue starts at the premium membership priced the same as Microsoft's and Sony's own online services. And let's just rip the band-aid right off. The emulation of the Nintendo 64 is pathetic. There's been cases of music cutting out, alleged input delay, and the loss of some assets. By this I mean the removal of fog from games like Mario 64 and Ocarina of Time. Yes, the fog was initially used to ease the rendering load on the N64, but it was implemented artistically as well, so when the fog was removed, everything just looked way worse. Yep, that's right, here we are, 4 consoles after the N64, and the Switch isn't even emulating it well. This is pretty much down to Nintendo being too lazy to tweak each game just a little bit, and likely just copied a bunch of ROMs and called it a day so they can make a quick buck. So that's another point to the idea that Nintendo has become complacent thanks to all the big numbers they're seeing in their bank account. You've probably seen the huge social media outrage against this, and yeah, it's a deserved outrage, and I do imagine the expansion service isn't actually making Nintendo too much money, but Nintendo doesn't care, and probably won't fix it. Chances are the premium service cost them so little to actually make that the negative reception doesn't concern them in the slightest. And just for a little bit of comparison, in the month I scripted this video, Sony gave away Persona 5 Strikers to their PlayStation Plus subscribers, so bit of a difference there. Honestly, just the absence of Virtual Console really hurt the Switch, but I guess the Virtual Console ports had a little bit of effort put into them, which seems like something that is below this new post-Wii U era Nintendo. Where's all the cool and fun online features from back in the day? Like Street Pass and Street Pass Quest. I get why we don't have Miiverse, I get why we don't have it, but we don't even have a cool little Mii Hub, where people on our friends list can post what they're doing on Switch, and maybe even some cool stickers. I take that instead of this boring old friends list that we have. It's a lack of these fun features that take away the soul from the Switch. The only personality it really has is that little noise it makes when you slide on the Joy-Cons. Apart from that, it feels more like a plain old tablet than a Nintendo product. Also, what happened to HD Rumble? They used it in some creative ways in 1-2-Switch, which was basically an overpriced tech demo, then never again. I don't know, they went pretty hard on it in the marketing, so I sorta expected it to be put to some kind of greater use. I mean, I'm sure there are those out there who really appreciated using the Rumble as a find-and controller method, but what about a use for the male audience? Okay, this part here is sorta subjective, but I really think Nintendo's game output has been sorta underwhelming with this console. So much of the schedule has been filled out with overpriced Wii U ports and unfinished Mario sports games. Not to mention that the past few holiday seasons have been carried by a Pokemon release of some kind. It gets old after a while. Look at Sony again. They put a ton of massive AAA first-party games out in 1 year. There's games like Uncharted 4, Horizon Zero Dawn, Spider-Man, Ghost of Tsushima, and a ton of other similar budget games, all released on the PS4 alone. Obviously, these games aren't for everyone, but regardless of your opinion on them, that output is still really impressive either way. Meanwhile, Switch users are over here still talking about when Super Mario Odyssey 2 and Breath of the Wild 2 will release. The PS5 is getting Horizon Forbidden West next month, Spider-Man 2 this year, and already has Miles Morales out, which I think helps put things into perspective. I'm not saying there hasn't been other big hits outside of the initial year of Switch. Smash Ultimate is a great game with lots of passion put into it, but the level of support just pales in comparison to Sony. Yeah, Animal Crossing was a big game, but let's be real, it was released unfinished, and we had to wait over a year for the rest of the content to be added in. Nintendo's new habit of releasing some games unfinished is a little scary, but I'll get into that another time. If I'm being honest, I would confidently guess that Nintendo did intend on putting out more games initially, but once they got hit with those crazy sales numbers, they likely slowed down their game output to see just how little they could do without actually damaging their sales. And seeing how their sales are doing just fine and dandy, I really don't expect any improvement in the frequency of game output. But hey, Breath of the Wild 2 is coming this year. Hopefully. I don't really think Nintendo will take things too far with their cockiness from their success. The Wii U era was not that long ago, and I'm sure they still know exactly what not to do with their new console, which will probably be another Switch, but hey, we'll see. And when that Switch does come around, I really hope they up their game in terms of game output and try to match Sony. And you know, reaching out to Microsoft for some help with their online servers wouldn't hurt anybody. And Joy-Con drift is just a lost cause. At this point, it's too late in the Switch's life cycle to expect things to just turn around all of a sudden. So all we can really do is hope that these issues get fixed in the next generation of Nintendo hardware. And hey, it's not like we have it terrible with the Nintendo Switch. There are people out there who bought the Xbox One, so we should be a little grateful. The same way we'll both be grateful once you hit that subscribe button, and also once you watch one of those videos that's in the end card that's coming up right about now.